What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Deep Thoughts. So I smoked this very bizarre Le Méchant Hotelier. I don't fucking know. Bought it some Smoke Lounge. Looks pretty cool. Today we're going to talk about censorship because it's now a big deal in August of 2018. Sites like Alex Jones are being taken off various private corporate channels, but what's weird about it is you get a bunch of articles saying that, a particular company is taking him down when they are running articles in a different part of the internet saying how that company is not only not taking him down, but defending his position to have his own voice. So it's sort of all over the map, unfortunately. But what is censorship? Who would do it? Are you for censorship? And of course, everyone has a knee-jerk reaction. No, not me. My God, censorship. Geez, that's communistic rule kind of stuff, right? When I was a kid, censorship was simply a barrier to maturity. You weren't allowed to see certain things on TV because it was readily available to all ages and all sexes. But if you were old enough and you were in the right pocket, you were allowed to see certain things. When I say sexes, I mean, for instance, war. We wouldn't let women see certain gruesome sections of war. Sure, there's women who are medical staff that are not only allowed to see it, but elected to help cure the problem, right? But overall, we didn't let children listen to swearing. We had a rating system in the movie theater, which is sort of a joke today, but that's what it was for. Just to allow people to choose what they wanted to become as they got older. Do you want to start swearing like crazy? Is porn going to be a big part of your life in order to be sexually happy with your spouse? But today it is a matter of propaganda curtailing. So we know that every single news organization in this planet that has been attached to any sort of massive funding is a completely corrupt arm of the deep state. Deep state being defined as the bankers that rule the world, down to all those who are willing to suck on their tit to feel powerful. Right? They go and find these almost pathological losers of the world and promise them fame and prosperity, and they're sitting there going, you're always been the prosecuted or persecuted individual. Hey, you want to change your name to Barack Obama and become president? Well, I was born in Kenya. I can't do it. Well, don't even worry about it, man. Don't even worry about it. We got something called censorship, and we'll pull that out the last ditch effort. I guess maybe last ditch effort we'll kill Rolling Stone reporters who find out the truth. We'll disappear Joan Rivers for speaking the truth. For me, I think I like to roll my own in this world. It pains me to be reliant on a platform to have a platform. But I don't have to be personally doing this to feel happy with my contribution to society, but it is nice to reach out to potentially the entire planet because I'm on YouTube. That's pretty cool. I've said some pretty controversial things on here, but I'm not saying it in a way that I think is alarming. So my stuff just stays up there. I got probably a dozen videos with demonetized out of 320 some videos. I watch pre-roll ads on videos on YouTube where guys are slinging fake semen and fake feces and fake vaginal blood on people inside bathrooms. And they get pre-roll ads on their videos from YouTube. As if anyone wants to pre-roll in front of that crap. And I simply mention the word like enemy, 9/11, and all of a sudden I'm demonetized. Because that is touching on an agenda of the deep state. Now, I think it's pretty evident to all of you guys that all of the social media of the world only became the top social media in the world because it's part of the Five Eyes. The Five Eyes are the 5 intelligence agencies around the world who spy on each other with full knowledge that they're being spied on, so that they can trade information to get around and skirt the law that says that they're not able to be spied on themselves. For instance, the Fourth Amendment forbids eavesdropping and spying in the United States of America. So it is illegal for any of our organizations to spy on us. Even though they do, they cannot do it legally. Now, what's cool about the NSA, in my opinion, is that they spy, store, and ignore until there's a FISA warrant or some sort of other warrant to search the information on you. But then you still have evidence that's being made admissible into court that was gained through non-constitutional or unconstitutional methods of violating the Fourth Amendment. So what they end up doing is saying, Israel, Britain, Australia, all of Europe, they're all able to spy on us, American citizens, and if we need information on John Doe the plumber, we go to one of the other four eyes to get the information on our eye, and vice versa. It goes around, right? Well, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, any of these gigantic corporations that are part of a social media fabric, they're all owned by those people, and they always have been. Most of them have developed around and using the intelligence agencies that we don't like, the individuals within those agencies that we don't like, to become powerful. Apple becoming powerful was all about Steve Jobs' last client at Next Computer, which was the clowns. He goes in 93, he pops out 3 years later, and he's taking over Apple, and he's integrating all of this miniaturization and algorithms into his company. Meanwhile, Google is off in Stanford campus, exploding, releasing map technology in the first day that worked the first time. Like there were no problems with that technology because it was developed by our tax dollars for the military and for the intelligence agencies, right? So you have to understand that all the computer operating systems that you've ever toyed with, it's all about spying on your data and harvesting the data into binary trees that are easily searchable. 11 million entries can be searched in about 7 milliseconds. So how many files do you have? 100 million? Okay. We're up to maybe, 1/10 of a second trying to search that information. I'm not sure about every single flavor of Ubuntu and Unix. They might be the easiest ones to get into, I don't know. But Apple operating system, the Mac operating system, Windows, and Chrome are all wide open. 100% open. Read an article today. The latest MacBook was hacked into the second it was attached to its first Wi-Fi connection. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. File sharing is not turned on automatically on a Macintosh. You have to turn it on. I think the same thing with Windows, right? So you have to understand those things, in my opinion, to understand the context of what censorship is today. Censorship today is not protecting young people from mature information. Censorship today is to control all narratives inside the human mind. Period. All languages, all cultures, all orientations, genders, everything. It's all supposed to be filtered into one avenue. And it was going pretty good until Americans voted in 2016 and changed everything. Now, there's always been a vote here and there around the world, but when you get the largest superpower in the world, the largest gross domestic product country in the world, with the most money in the world, when you get that country to change its ways and stop living in this censorship bubble with a president that's very cavalier. Yeah, we look at it as unrefined, sure. But in the end, it's actually a bit of freedom to sort of be who you are, to have a certain style, right? How many times has President Trump raked over the coals for not being presidential? Hopefully you've had the guts to watch one of his rallies that he does for budding GOP candidates where he addresses the issue. He mocks the press. He mocks society, and he says, they say I'm not presidential enough. Well, let me show you what that's like. You would be bored to death. This auditorium wouldn't be full if I was being presidential. Why? Because they all act the same. No one's saying anything different. You could predict what I would say before you even came to the rally and just stay home and you'd be right. So why do come to a rally? Culture needs diversity. It needs it within its own culture. pick a culture. Let's say the American culture. Forget about everything else and us picking on other folks for their differences. When I grew up, you had, my God, just in music alone, you had your older folks like my grandparents playing big band stuff and really cool, Lawrence Welk kind of music. And then in my dad's realm, you had Deep Purple and, the Temptations. In my world, you had Grandmaster Flash, you had Rapper's Delight, you had, Queen and Van Halen and all these groups, all the British rock bands, Within a neighborhood, you had, again, we had black guys that walked down the street and they had a walk. They had a walk that was wild, and white guys would be all jealous because we'd drive by going, damn, that brother has actually paid attention to himself. He's got his clothes dialed in. He's got his walk dialed in. His hair, his sunglasses, his shoes, everything, the way he talks. What he likes in terms of music. The guys would carry these big-ass boom boxes, right? And they'd be playing some music. You didn't know where the hell he got it, but it was the best damn music you ever heard in your life within that genre of music. Meanwhile, there's another guy driving by in his iRock, and he's got, the latest Van Halen blasting or Kraftwerk, music nonstop or something. And it was a great world where everyone got along, everyone respected each other, and because, the white guys only competed against other white guys, the black guys only competed against other black guys. The cool thing was that across the river, right, across those divides, there was just pure admiration. Why am I mentioning this? Because when you censor society, you censor the ability of that to ever occur again. Oh, you can't do that. Why? Because we censor that. Because that offends some fucking snowflake up in Berkeley. Well, fuck Berkeley. It's a teeny tiny fucking place. Right? Let the little fucking snowflakes go up there and make Berkeley something else totally cool that when I go there, I'm like, it's very different than me. You guys don't do the things that I do. But I appreciate Berkeley for being completely different. But don't go around trying to ruin the world. And when one of your folks invites, Milo to go speak at some conservative rally, don't burn your fucking building down, what disgusts me is that we've got censorship to a point where it's now controlling other factors of society, right? So part of censorship is just to say you can't hear information. Right? What is enlightenment again? Enlightenment is seeing something new. Well, how the hell can you see something new when you're fucking censored? Oh, I was going to look at that, but somebody said I can't. Oh, okay. Well, I am a robot. I am a sheep. I am a cattle. But don't call me a sheep and a cattle because I will get so offended that you call me a sheep and a cattle, but I'm a sheep and I'm a cattle and I'm a sheep, I'm a cattle. Right? That's how it works. Now, the other thing I want to caution you guys against is that we could be getting played. We could be getting played at every single level. Who we think is good is bad. Who is bad is good. We don't know. I don't really think there's any. We think they're bad and they're good situations, but it depends on what narrative you're endorsing. If you're trusting Apple and you're trusting Microsoft and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube to have your best interests in mind, I would say you're not part of their board of directors. I don't think you are. And so they have their own little ecosystem of their own concerns, and they don't necessarily play with each other. Now, it looks like when Alex Jones got nailed, a bunch of them played together. But I'm reading articles at one this morning about how Twitter's defending Alex Jones, about how Apple's defending Alex Jones. But then I read an article, 7 hours later about how they're still on the bandwagon of censoring him. As if these reporters have no fucking ability to read other people's news before they go out and read an article. It's like most of the news in the world is just rumor news anyway. It hasn't been researched. There's no journalistic integrity in anything. YouTube is a place where you get these 19-year-old kids who have done more journalism in the last 6 months than, Dan Rather did his whole fucking life, right? I'm not really angry. I'm just emphasizing my phrases with expletives. Freedom. The irony of non-censorship in this video is just so palpable. Where has censorship been in society as far back as perhaps the Greek theater? You don't get a lot of archaeological information from Babylonia and Egypt about censorship. They don't have passages that say, oh man, you know, this guy over here was against the pharaoh and bam, his head was cut off. Maybe it happened. I don't know. It seems like the Greeks were even very peaceful, kind of, you know, and you know, countries didn't exist back in the day, right? So you had these nomadic tribes that got together and eventually created these countries and said, let's call this land a particular name. And so it's going to be peaceful for a while, right? Because everyone's going to be sharing each other's wisdom across the tribes. Again, you have a tribe that lives by water. They're going to learn how to fish and take care of beach-like things. You have a tribe that's inland, just a few miles, and they're going to be like, we learned agriculture and we learned irrigation. And these animals that you don't have at the beach is what we kill and to eat. And so let's get together for a few hundred years and let's share that information. It takes a while to congeal a country together to then start having some sort of global narrative to then enforce through censorship. But we know what happened to folks in, was it Ethiopia with Pol Pot? We know what happened with Russian dissent. We know what British dissent was like. One of the things that you'll find the older that you get and the more you talk to people who have traveled in this world is they'll go to countries. I had a friend of mine move from Orange County to the Philippines, and he came back a little different. He was a little bit terrified, and I said, well, what's the deal? And he goes, well, I like the place a lot. He goes, but man, just a few blocks down from where I live, people disappear in the middle of the night because they spoke up against the government. I never knew that. I never knew the Philippines were disappearing their own citizens. I used to work in a company with at least 20 Filipino employees, and they were all the sweetest human beings I've ever met in my frickin' life. And just to have someone else within their culture get to the state of evil to grab people and disappear them, it's almost like when you meet 20 people from a particular country and they're all just really take the shirt off their back for you kind of people, it's hard to imagine that there's someone else on their faction, someone else in their area of the world that will go evil, right? We have favorable trade agreements with countries that disappear their citizens. We look the other way because they will turn their citizens into slave labor to manufacture a product. We look the other way. Well, hell, if you let censorship fester in one part of the world, it will get to you. It will get to you. So we got to be careful now, don't we? In this world of the United States of America, and Europe has gone completely over the deep end again. Europe is essentially virtue signaling to the world. And I know a lot of you are from Europe and you do not agree with this at all, and you're their only hope. But it seems like at least 51% of Europe is saying, we love tyranny, we believe tyranny needs to return, we are going to look the other way as our European Union overlords pass censorship laws that will put people in jail for acknowledging what simply is occurring in this region of the world. You want to talk about a sanctuary city, a child raping, a murder, even a gay murder, you know, they sit outside gay nightclubs and just murder the guys that come out on video. Cops are told not to do anything, to stand down. Wow. Man, who's holding on to that fucking crazeballs agenda over there? Because it's just the way it is. Britain is putting people in jail for simply acknowledging what's going on in Britain. Where's the Queen? She's sitting back, probably, rolling her hands going, we're going to bring it back, guys. Before I even die at 150,000 years old, I'm going to be reigning over a tyrannical England again. It will be so great. We'll have drones, the police, little tiny microscopic drones that fire bullets into your forehead if you happen to go against the state. And let me just kind of put two wires together. You've had a wire dangling on the right side of your head and a wire dangling on the left side of your head for as long as you've been awake, but maybe you haven't touched the two together. So let me touch the two together so you guys can see sort of what world we are, that we need to stop from happening here. We know that pedophilia has gone absolutely crazy in the world. That's one wire over here. And we know that that has been allowed because certain intelligence agencies, police forces, government officials have been allowed to be unchecked, uncensored, right, in what they do. And it was this one that gives power to this one. And when you touch them together, if you give ultimate power through tyranny to this group of people, then this wire over here, which is usually unacceptable in every single region of the world, raping and killing women, raping and killing kids of all ages, boys and girls, when you touch them together, you're going to get a supernova of a world that won't be worth living in. Now, if you're into psychology, you will get into a lot of folks that have raised their children one weird way. Even not in my hometown, but in 2 towns north of my hometown, there was a family that was notorious, both professors, husband and wife. They raised their son, who was born first, to be able to do anything he wanted. Drugs, sex, whenever he wanted to. They just literally raised him outside of any rule structure. Then they had a daughter within a year, and they raised her in the most conservative possible realm she could exist in. Very loving realm, from what I understand. But this girl called her father on her wedding night to ask permission to have sex with their husband, as the story goes. So you can raise a kid into believing anything that you want to raise them into, and they will simply adopt that. To go see Fahrenheit 451, the movie, it's a fictional tale about burning books. But that was a whole society bred on burning books. They retold history wrong. Benjamin Franklin was a fireman. He started fires against books. You didn't put fires out. Now, if you talk to a liberal, which I have plenty in my family, all you need is one, honestly, and you get the whole spectrum of all things. They will fight arguments of censorship through what I call the extremist debate tactic. I once had the conversation about political correctness. If you watch my episodes in season 1 about it, you'll hear this twice. But I was talking about how it's important not to be politically correct with all terms because it is a cognitive dissonance machine within the mind of man. I brought up the word retarded. Retarded is a word meaning something is slower. When you fix a timing belt in a car, mechanics will talk to each other and say, you need to retard that, so many seconds because it's off. The pistons aren't firing at the right time. And the mechanics don't get all butthurt. They simply go, okay. They put the little flash gun on the belt so they can see the little line come across. And as soon as they get that thing timed, boom, the engine runs smooth as glass and you're off to the races. They charge money for their services and they're gone. But if you have a child under a particular level of mental handicap, they have the retarded gene where they're a little slower, right? They may be able to solve for pi at 100 decimal places, but they're just slower at doing it. Perhaps they can draw New York City after seeing it one time, but it takes them 4 months to do it, but it's absolutely accurate and perfect. And so I said, we can't deprecate out of society words that mean exactly what they mean and that they're very helpful to society in communicating about something. Now, sure, there's a lot of us that will use the word retarded against something like, oh, that was so retarded. It was like a really dumb movie or a dumb play, or, a lot of us alpha male guys will say, oh my God, that's so gay. Oh my God. And we're not having any thoughts about someone who is gay from the LGBT organization. We don't have any thoughts in that realm. Hey, if you had a word that was being used against you personally, and there's a whole group of society, probably the majority of society, are taking that word away from you and putting it towards inanimate objects, wouldn't you say that's a winning situation, right? But so the rebuttal in the argument was, well, we just can't call everybody the N-word, call black people the N-word, and da-da-da-da, and went through all these different things, call gay people, fags, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. We need to bring back racially motivated slurs. We need to bring back the persecution of the mentally handicapped with jerks in their faces going, "You're so retarded, blah, 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 blah." That's what I'm saying. You're right. Well, you got me locked down. You fucking intellectual, you. It's an extremist argument to win a debate. It is what petty people do. It is what super shallow people do. That's not what we do on the show. That's not what we do in the YouTube comments. We are smart. We are simply trying to say that the brain should never see something for what it is, use an accurate word to designate what we're looking at. Again, we're not talking about slang, we're talking about real things, and then be told that that's not what it is. You know, it's strange. We have cigarettes in the UK called fags. I don't know where in the hell that word came from. It doesn't derive from cigarettes, cigar. I don't know where that comes from. It seems to have existed decades before that word was ever used against the homosexual person, usually a male, which is also bizarre. Why is that word only usually used against male homosexuals? Very strange. To use that word against a male homosexual, we're talking about something hurtful, something that's sort of an attack. It's a slur. That's not what anyone who's trying to defend the definitions of words is trying to do. Some of you know handicapped people. People have lost the ability to either walk correctly or walk at all, from the waist down. Well, when I was a kid, they were respectfully called cripples. Me just saying that right now, I feel weird saying that because I don't ever use that word. It has been demonized since I was a kid. Well, the other thing that I know is the people that I have friends of that who have had these difficulties, who have said, you know, I'm not going to let that get in the way. I'm going to figure out a way to play baseball, basketball, hockey. I'm going to snowboard. I'm going to water ski. You know, it's in the dozens of people, both that I know and that I know of on the internet. There's like 4 or 5 folks in the United States of America that were born without arms or legs. And I just was at the airport the other day and I saw one of their books. I didn't even recognize the guy on the cover of the book. I was like, wow, another one I'd never seen. But they go around schools teaching kids, man, you have no excuse. So they took what is visibly to us a disability, because we're used to legs and arms, and they said, you know, I've never had them, so I don't know if I miss them at all. I'm just born different. But you know what? I live a full life. I do everything that you do. They father children or mother children, right? They fall in love. They have rich, wonderful lives. They don't die early or anything like that. Right? But there's 2 layers of censorship, isn't there? Outside of the old one when I was a kid, which was a third one, which is, you know, hey, a 5-year-old shouldn't be watching a porn. They just shouldn't, right? Because the narrative within porn is a corrupt narrative of what people really are in the world. It just is. I would say overall narrative, right? But you have the petty censorship that is called political correctness. Do the bankers of the world really care whether or not you call someone who's mentally handicapped retarded? Absolutely not. Do they worry about someone in a wheelchair being called a cripple? Absolutely not. They do not care about all that petty crap, but they do put money behind it, and they do fuel it. And why is that? Because they're trying to mold the minds of man to be completely conflicted to the very core of your thought process. They want us to be able to be told that they have clothes on as the emperors of this planet in their own mind. And we're going to go, oh yeah, that looks great. You know, you look wonderful. Talking about clothes that they don't have on as they walk down the main street, the main thoroughfare, completely buck naked. But like Charlie Chaplin said in his great dictator speech, he says, as long as men die, liberty will prevail. Because what is the story of the emperor that has no clothes on? He's walking down the street. He's buck naked. But they're pretending he has on clothing and a big long tail, right? If someone's holding this fake tail off the back of his clothing, of his cape or whatever it is. And everyone's yelling and screaming. It'd be weird to see where this actual tail came from and see if it ever really happened. But a little boy is standing there with his parents and he goes, oh my God, look, he's naked. He's not wearing any clothes. And that's what Charlie Chaplin's talking about. Because a child will be born with its cognitive abilities, no matter how much you mangle the mind of a child with, prenatal vaccinations or whatever, the child will always see things perfectly at first until they are assassinated with chemicals, until they are told by Al Gore about things to fear when they go to bed. But the other half of censorship, that is absolutely what the elites of the world want against us, is any narrative about what they are actually doing to us. Any narrative that says that socialism is bad, that the EU is bad, that the Muslim invasion of Europe is bad. Anything that you disagree with, it's a part of their agenda. They want laws passed, and they're getting them in Europe. They're getting them by the dozens. I mean, every single year there is at least half a dozen unthinkable, tyrannical laws that are passed in Europe. But ever since World War II, there's 14 countries, I believe, still that refuse to allow anyone to debate the facts of the Holocaust. You couldn't possibly adjust anything that happened in that story, in that narrative. Do we need laws to protect the truth? Do we? Doesn't a citizen of a particular country have the right to say, hey, it's been this way for several hundred years, if not several thousand years, and I'm opposed to this particular change? And then, boom, they're in prison. They haven't affected the law yet, but they don't want that idea to rise up and bite them in the butt. And so they put the person in jail. I hear censorship arguments all the time of, when you're not allowed to see something that you want to see, when you're not allowed to say something in public that you would otherwise be allowed to say. In America, we have a tremendous amount of double standards in this country for censorship. It is illegal for a young person to go into an R-rated movie by themselves. It is illegal for them to go into a XXX porn shop to buy a porn magazine or a porn blah, blah, blah. It's illegal for them to be under 18 and sign up to some website online. But you can go to a gay pride parade here in America where a bunch of people show up naked. They show up with extremely sexually explicit objects all over their bodies. And little children are there watching this occur when any other time of day, without that parade to protect lunacy, you'd be put in jail. If you pee behind a bar against a wall between two dumpsters where no one can see your junk, you can get arrested for public indecency, public urination, and you could be put on the sexual predator list here in America, such that wherever you live, you got to notify everyone that you're a perv because you peed outside. You were drunk to begin with. But now here's the thing about censorship. We don't even talk about it in this world, do we? I mean, we only talk about it when something gets heightened to awareness, and then we talk about it, but we don't really have anything new to say, right? We simply say the old catchphrase, censorship is bad, okay? Right? That's what we say, and then we walk off because we're not really having the narrative within our own little private world to say, okay, we do have to make up some decisions. We have to make some decisions about what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed. We have to do this. It's important. So let's talk about it, okay? Part of the censorship is related to disliking something in the world. On one side of the fence, we have some people like the bakers of the world not wanting to make cakes that are going to be for gay weddings because their religion says marriage is between a man and a woman. It's their religion. They really do honestly believe that, and they believe that if you're homosexual, you will go to hell. Now, as that might sound utterly crazy to some of you, they actually fear the wrath of their creator in the afterlife. They fear going to hell themselves for eternity if they happen to aid this process in any way, shape, or form, through laws, meaning gay marriage is okay, to baking a cake. Okay, well, they're different than a lot of us. Okay. I don't think God, gives a shit personally, but that's their thing. But we have governments in the United States of America, state and local, trying to force the issue. Nope, you got to make that cake. It's discrimination if you don't make that cake for a gay couple. Well, probably 90% of the gay folks I've talked to about that issue over the last 10 years say, that's so much bullshit. The guy doesn't make the cake. You go to somebody else. You don't force someone to do it. And hey, If it becomes really popular to be gay, then that guy's not going to get any business and he'll go out of business. Right? There you go. It's self-correcting. Does society need to step in with laws and jail sentences? No. You just let it take its organic course, right? When it comes to hate crimes, well, obviously a hate crime is a very acidic thing. Who is going to ever endorse, the lynching of someone because of their race? The lynching of someone because of their sexual orientation. I mean, we're talking about grabbing someone, beating someone, and in a lot of cases, unfortunately, taking their life. Well, the EU is now forbidding you from talking about these things when they happen. The weird thing is I think the EU, I haven't been able to check this, but it seems as though it's illegal for a German citizen, a white Anglo-Saxon person, to perform a rape on a child, to perform a rape on an adult, to conduct a hate crime, killing someone for their sexual orientation or race. You'll go to jail. But if a Muslim does it, as part of this invasion, the cops are not allowed to mention it. The press is not allowed to mention it. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing over here. That seems to be the common thread of all the cases where people actually incur penalties and jail time. In America, thank God, if anyone does it to anyone, you're in trouble. Period. In fact, the more illegal you are in this country, the more you're in trouble. But then we have this whole other level, which is conspiracy. There's no doubt there are thousands and thousands of conspiracies that are currently either active or recently active in the political system of the United States of America, from the state and local level all the way up to the highest levels of the FISA court. Right? If I was a FISA judge right now that had been lied to about a dossier to spy on a political candidate who was going to oppose the DNC candidate, I would be so fucking furious. I would throw the book and more books at anyone who lied to me about that, because it is embarrassing the very paradigm of your existence. It is making you trivial. Imagine you're a FISA court judge, the secret court that was invented, I believe, in 2001, 2002, somewhere after 9/11, that was supposed to validate the spying on and surveillance on foreign terrorists. That's what the organization was set up to do. And somehow they finagled this thing against Donald Trump. You don't have to like Donald to get behind this situation. And every day you wake up and you're thinking, I'm doing good. I am protecting the United States of America against foreign terrorists. And then you find out you were played. And you find out that your entire life, let's say you're in your 50s or higher, you're in age, and you got played by some criminals in the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, and the DNC. You got played by these folks. And now you're going to get dragged into it. On one side, you have all those individuals that played you, threatening your life, threatening the safety of your children, to say you better continue going along with this, otherwise we're going to murder you. We're going to take away everything that you have. You think the story of Job's bad? It's not going to have a third act. You're going to stay down, and you're going to regret ever going against us. We got all the money and power in the world. Look at George Soros' bank account. That is going to finance your demise. People like him. But then the person's got to go, geez, if I lose, if these corrupt factions lose, which it looks like they're losing, then I'm going to go down as the biggest conspirator that's ever lived. I was the one that allowed the tippy top of corruption, of the most corrupt thing that's ever happened in the United States of America in the last 100 years, to have occurred. And I'll record it in the history books as one of the Auschwitz, Nazi guys that killed a bunch of Jews. That's how I'm going to be remembered. Decisions. I think I said this in one of my season 3 finale episodes, but it's important to mention again here. I have an attorney friend of mine who's a big attorney, okay? He has defended the biggest cases on this planet. And he told me something very special about the way that America is set up. If you are questioned by any of the alphabet agencies in a room, and you're thinking, man, I didn't do this crime. They want to talk to me. That's okay. I got nothing to hide. I'm just going to tell the truth. But they need a patsy. They need someone to help their case along because they don't really have a case. And they ask you a simple question: what did you eat for lunch 2 days ago? And you accidentally get 3 days ago mixed up with 2 days ago, and you said you ate hot dogs when you actually ate hamburgers, and they know. They've got photographs of you eating hot dogs 2 days ago. You are now in contempt of court. You're now lying to those alphabet agencies, and now they can press charges against you. And you've also lied to the highest agencies in America, such that they can press massive charges on you because you are lying to a very important government agency. So the moral of the story is to never, ever, ever talk to these individuals, ever. Unless you have the questions in advance, you can do your own research to make sure your answers are 1,000% perfect. There's no room for interpretation of any kind, etc. But now, here's what's legal. So it's illegal for you to get one atom out of place. But what's legal is that these alphabet agencies are allowed by current laws in the United States of America to lie to you about information around you. They can tell you that your mother turned you in and use illegal surveillance against you to concoct a story that will make it believable that your mother did lie against you, thus provoking answers in you that will get you in trouble. So they're allowed to lie to you 1,000%, and you're not allowed to get one atom out of place. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle does not apply to you. But to loop back into the solutions realm, I would say, I think it's fairly obvious that we have things we want to shelter children from, but they shouldn't see. Anything that will sway their opinion out of organic life, right? They were going to live their life and make their own decisions about what they like and what they dislike, and you're injecting a narrative into their school systems. You're injecting narratives into their cartoons, into their movies, to desensitize them against things. There's a bunch of comedians around the world, and I have managed some from time to time and helped them from time to time. None of my guys ever went this dark route, but they were trying to find an edgy thing to make jokes about. There's a couple guys that are extremely famous, even a couple girls. Sarah Silverman to be one of them. And the idea was to push the envelope of what was acceptable to say on stage. Louis C.K. did it too. They took pedophilia and they made a bunch of jokes about it. In fact, one guy was unbelievably, I forgot his name, but he's got a special on Netflix. And his whole thing was about, and he goes to San Francisco, of course, where everything's really loose, in terms of any moral regard for society. And he just makes one pedophile joke after another on stage. Raping kids, having sex with kids, tricking kids into sex, and he gets celebrated. Oh, sure, the audience is kind of, and then they're laughing and they're giving this guy money, giving him an entire career, doing nothing more than degrading the very fabric of society. The protectionism that we have around children who are innocent and absolutely vulnerable to adults, right? Think about it. When your child comes out of the mother, it is under legal guard by the parent until they're 18. Maybe you're Gary Coleman, you can get out early if your parents are stealing all your money, but still, up to 14 years old, 14 years of development. The parent has got to protect the child from society. Well, are the parents censoring all the cartoons? Nah. Most cartoons are good. They really are. But then there's this weird blurry line at 18 years old. What can you do at 18? Well, you can vote. You can die for your country in war. But you can't smoke tobacco. And you can't drink alcohol. But supposedly at 21, there's this amazing epiphany between 18 and 21. Supposedly you gain all the faculties to understand alcohol and cigarettes. All right? And we all know that kids have no problem getting this stuff just as soon as they want it in this world. In my hometown, there was at least 2 cops that were buying all the alcohol for the kids. All right, I know some of those kids who are alcoholics today. But they had their booze purchased by the police. Those folks are long gone. They're retired. We know families that have alcoholism that run in their family. The kids have a predisposition to be able to tolerate tremendous amounts of alcohol without any super ill effects. They never throw up. They never have the self-correcting problem that my family has, that when you drink too much, you'll stop. You'll stop. I was trying to think the last time I was drunk, and I can't remember. I can't remember the last time I was drunk. I was probably in my 20s. That's over 20 years ago, folks. But I had a 48-year-old girl I was dating once ask me when I was 46, she said, well, it's really weird. You never get drunk. What's wrong with you? I said, I'm over 40. That's why I don't get drunk. And the look on her face was like, I don't understand what you're saying. Society has taught me how to behave, and I must be drunk. You must be drunk too, and everyone must get drunk. That's just how we all shake off life. This person was hardly living in some tyrannical world. So as much as censorship, it controls what you can think and forbids you from thinking things, it also is a mechanism by which it opens up things that you would never be exposed to. I mean, let's do a little bit of math here. We're not allowed to use words like retarded anymore. And again, used as a slang and a slang against someone, especially who's mentally handicapped, is the most reprehensible thing a human being could do to another human being, quite frankly. But when they want to erect gigantic statues to Satan, which has a mantra of human sacrifice, of the undoing of life, that's totally cool. When an art gallery gets set up in San Francisco or LA or New York that is full of photographs of things that would be utterly illegal to see as a young person, there's no age check at the door. You can bring your 12-year-old kid in there to see this stuff. I watched a Murakami installation in Mocha, and one of the statues is a naked boy, kind of a, I don't know, maybe late teens, early 20s kid. It's an anime cartoon character. He's holding his junk, and he's ejaculated. And there is a cloud of his ejaculant swimming around his body. It's an amazing sculpture. It's an anime sex thing. I sat there with parents with little kids looking at this thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, on one level, they had no idea the statue was in there. But the second that they turn the corner and go, holy shit, you kids can't go in that room. And again, there was no censorship about that. But if you were to enact that exact scene to the best of your ability with a real human being, put it into a video, and showed it to a bunch of kids at a grade school, that person would be behind bars for the rest of their fucking life, probably killed in prison for being a pedo and exposing children to that stuff. But in the form of quote-unquote art, everything becomes legal. Just like the gay pride parades, which have all kinds. A guy walking around in a dildo suit with his real junk hanging out down the center. But again, my buddies who take a piss behind two dumpsters, oh, well, they're going to get put on some list. So we have a big dilemma on our hands. What is censored? If you can die for your country, can't you smoke a cigarette? Can't you have a beer? Maybe not at the same exact time. If you can vote for the leaders of this world, don't you think you could sip a beer, smoke a cigarette? In the United States of America, we have this white, privileged group called Antifa, pure fascist group. They are allowed to attack citizens for their opinions, but the police have barely stepped up to the plate and taken Antifa down at any one of these organizations. Why? Because the governor or the mayor or the chief of police tell them to stand down. Doesn't that sound fucked to you? My entire life being an American, freedom of speech, the First Amendment of the Constitution / the Bill of Rights, has been one of the most prestigious things that we hold up as what makes us different, the idea that can't be killed. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, was invented to protect the First Amendment, which is why it's number 2 on the list, right? If it was for hunting, it'd be like 10. Oh, and you can hunt with a gun. These things are very, very important. But we are being attacked from every conceivable angle in terms of a double standard, in terms of a cognitive dissonance mechanism, such that you experience one thing and it's illegal, but when done, the exact same thing is done, even at higher extremes, in a different context to the same exact people, it's okay. It's a super tough nut to crack. It's a super tough nut to even get into a conversation about it with the most intellectual people who agree with you. Let's just go down an exercise. What if we said using the word fag as a slur is illegal? Then that word is almost completely deprecated out of society and becomes an illegal word that then can bring charges against you, unless perhaps you're from Britain and you're talking about it against a cigarette. Okay, maybe we split the hair and we go, okay, if it's used as a derogatory slang towards a human for their sexual orientation, then it's a crime. It's a hate crime. Using it against an inanimate object, a movie, a car, something else, well, that's okay. You see how that could get really, really tough? Oh, you said, how did you use that word again? Because I'm going to call the police if you used it in this way, but I can't call the police if you called it in that way. I think a lot of what's going on is they're trying to control who you can like, what you can like, who you can hate, and what you can hate. Hopefully you hate nothing in this world besides tyranny. And, people that try to control the planet, people that try to corrupt society. Money is the number one fuel to allow those that want to change the world to be able to change the world. Think about a law. How's a law passed? Someone drafts it, and then a bunch of people vote on it. Well, what has to happen before it gets drafted? Well, there has to be this sentiment in society that it is something in the consciousness of man that needs to be litigated against. Then there's a vote. Well, it used to be that our representatives represented the constituents. Now lobbyists get in there and pay them off, and all the votes are coming out of who's got enough money to pay off all the politicians. Well, there's plenty of people. There's infinite money out there to pay these folks off, and because they're all shilly deep staters, that's what they got into office to do. That's how they got into office in the first place. So the only thing you need to do is drum up the sentiment to get the law drafted. But we know laws are drafted without any sentiment, things that we don't care about. There's no people in California, okay, that are against straws, plastic straws. Oh, yeah, there's a few liberals in San Francisco probably, but there's not enough people in the state of California to really pass a law against straws. But there's some cabal against straws. Go to an airport. Go to an airport right at the TSA check-in and look at how many metric tons of water and plastic items that are being thrown into bins at the last second. Water that's being completely wasted. All your soda drinks, everything. As if somehow you could drink nitroglycerin, one of the two compounds that make up nitroglycerin, and survive, right? So you should be able to take a water bottle and go, doink, see? I'm okay. Here, smell this, right? Here, why don't you dub your little swab thing into my water? I'll pour a little bit on the thing, and then you can run it against a bomb checking thing, and you can tell if it's water or not. Insanity. Absolute insanity, the level of waste that's going on in America simply due to the TSA. It's not the employee's fault. It's whoever passed these laws. And let's review for 1 second here, because you guys need to repeat this over and over and over to your friends and family. Don't necessarily have to rake it across the consciousness of TSA employees who are just doing their job, right? They weren't incubated in some camps to go against America and then hatched into this position. They're just kids trying to do what they do, right? But the whole liquid on board thing was hatched out of a bullshit thing that happened in the UK. There was some plane. I was up late at night when this happened. I watched it all. It went from like 3 to 7 to potentially 27 people or whatever were conspiring to blow up a plane using liquid explosives. And they were all detained out of the jet, broad daylight, and it was headed towards New York City. Eventually, the investigation went on a few days, and all the men were let off because none of them had liquid explosives at all. It was a complete false accusation against these individuals. It never happened, but all of a sudden the TSA lumped into their protocol, you couldn't bring liquids on board. Any of you know anything about nitroglycerin? The two active ingredients can be held in the 2 bottles that they allow you to bring in, mixed in a bathroom. It divides in the bathroom, shake it up in your fucking seat, and the fuselage blows to hell, right? Or at least the shock wave inside the fuselage would kill pretty much everyone in the whole thing. They're not protecting you against anything. They're just trying to instill tyranny on you, one little step at a time. The shoe bomber guy, right? This pathetic fucking loser who was escorted onto a plane by an FBI agent who then sits a couple seats behind him. He pulls the strings on his shoes, and obviously there was no intent to kill anyone because the FBI guy's on the plane with him. There was basically tantamount to bad firecrackers in his shoe, right? The guy's a complete fucking loser of this world, trying to become profound, trying to get himself a legacy. Well, he got himself one, and now we have to take our shoes off because of this false flag that was occurring on a plane. How easy it is to manipulate society, right? One of the chief fueling forces of censorship in this world are individuals with no purpose in their lives. Students that have big degrees and nothing, that have huge debts, they have no future, and someone walks by on a Craigslist post from the Soros group and pays them to hook up at a rally, and they find more lost souls, and they're like, oh, you're lost and disgruntled too? Well then, let's get together. And then they are willing to buy all these false narratives because they have barely 2 fucking brain cells to rub together, which is why they're in the debacle they're in. Their bad degree choices and their bad majors simply so they can get the degree. It was a sign of their inability to process data properly. And so we have these small factions. When I was a kid, it was the PTA, which was the, I forgot what the hell it stands for. It's like Teachers Association or something like that. But they would wreak havoc on little communities like where I was from, coming in with all their rules and their sensitivity training and all this other stuff. Hey, do we all need a little sensitivity training? Sure, but it's called society. You get rejected because you're an asshole, you'll either remain an asshole or remain completely isolated by yourself, or you'll change. Because that's what people do, right? Hate is a very inexpensive emotion. However, it takes a lot to hang on to the disgruntled heart over time. So eventually you calm down. Your genetics calm down. Why does your genetics calm down in an aggressive manner to a peaceful manner? Very simple. When you were young in a tribe 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 or 50,000 years ago, you were expected to be the hunters. Go out there and get some food for us old people sitting in our beds like, Charlie Bucket's grandparents, right? And once you got older, the aggressive gene inside the human body calmed down because you weren't expected to go out and hunt. It's a natural biological cycle of the human body. So why people calm down who are militant, crazy gangbangers? They always do. Look at all those prison shows. They always calm down. I know plenty of people in the world who were very evil when they were young, and they calmed down. It's a natural cycle. So the rulers of the world know this is the cycle, and so they take advantage of folks. If you're in the military, and you got deep into the military, and you didn't go full career into like special ops where you're remaining a very violent individual, they know that there's a delta force cutoff where you simply become useless because you're gaining too many moral fibers and you can't do what you used to do. You're thinking it through. Probably got some aches and pains as well. But the military code in the Pentagon is that soldiers have to be built out of kids from the age of 18 to 23, because at 23 they gain a moral fiber. They become useless to the senseless wars that are out there to keep the world thinking that they hate each other, so the bankers stay in charge. The officials stay in charge. Censorship is 2 stages. Control the narrative inside the minds of human beings, and thus, the second stage, control how society forms around those individuals such that it can be easily controlled. Do we need society to be easily controlled? Well, we don't want it to be chaotic. We don't want it to be law of the jungle. So we need a little bit of order in this world. Within the confines of the United States of America, all individuals/corporations, which are just simply paper organizations, paper individuals, I should say, with their own EIN numbers instead of Social Security numbers, must abide by the laws of this country. As long as the First Amendment exists in the United States of America, all corporations have to honor it. When you buy property anywhere in the United States of America, there's a little seal that has to be on the bottom of your broker that says that you cannot be turned down because of your race. Well, that sounds like a pretty good idea, don't you think? Why would that not apply to everything? Do you have the right? Do you have the right to assault someone, basically verbally threat someone's existence? No. Do you have the right to hurt them? Battery? No. We have laws. They're already in existence. We've done a pretty good job with our country so far. Europe used to have a pretty good grasp of this as well. But there's a gigantic cabal going on over there, and I'm not sure exactly who's behind everything. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it's time to make decisions. Heroes are defined by their decisions under pressure. Well, every single person that can hear my voice is a hero. You are. Well, now you have to make a tough decision under pressure. How are you going to live your life? What are you going to allow to infect the minds of your children? Your own brain. What are you going to speak in public? What are your opinions? Are they well-founded opinions, or are they knee-jerky narrative opinions that have been inserted for you? When you try to censor someone else, why are you doing that? When you try to censor yourself, why are you doing that? I don't have all the answers. In fact, I barely have any. But it's a discussion that needs to start happening all around the world. Again, we have countries that don't allow free speech, and they're allowed to be partners with the rest of the countries that at least at one point had free speech. America still has it, largely. And we are looking the other way so that we can get iPhones for cheap, TVs for cheap. Sounds like there might be some precedents to shut some of those arteries off, bring all those jobs back home, pay a little bit more, but know that it wasn't created, I should say, into existence through tyranny and slave labor. Censorship feeds tyranny, and censorship feeds socialism. And if those are so good, if tyranny and socialism are so fantastic, then I dare say they should happen naturally in society and not through enforcement. I hope you feel me. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. There are all the audio and video that you need. There's a locked Facebook group with a few folks in it. There's a Patreon page in case you want to contribute. Take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.